Well, hello everyone. I'm back. I am following up from my last video that I did. Really just kind of showcasing the game I've been working on a little bit, and I had a good time making that video, and I thought, well, I'll follow up on it. I did receive quite a bit of good feedback on some of the things I talked about, and I thought, well, what would be a good thing to do with these? I would like to maybe, at least talk about, maybe on a somewhat regular schedule, talk at least, about something I'm doing. I kind of figure it's more important to be regular and to have something interesting to say than to update frequently. I'm, weekly, bi-weekly, as long as I have something worth sharing, it would be fun to share it. What I've been working on lately has been AI. So I thought, well, that'd be a good topic to talk about this week, be AI. What does AI in the game look like? In the last video, I already showed off a little bit of, what the game is. So I thought, well, maybe now I can talk a little bit about, what's working behind the scenes. And AI is always an interesting topic. AI, for those of you that aren't familiar with the abbreviation, artificial intelligence, it's a very, very broad field. And specifically to game development, that usually means trying to give life to your characters, NPCs, whatever you want to call them. So I thought, well, in part this is a response to some feedback I received on the Discord forum. One of the community members, not sure if I'm pronouncing their username correctly, Beloirin, Lurin, I'll bring the comment up. But they had some interesting feedback about, well, really the way the enemies were behaving. I don't know, once this video is published, if the commentary here would be, visible. I could try to make this bigger. But the basic response was that there was too little of a pause between when the enemy spotted the player and when they attacked. And, I agree. In fact, I was watching the video shortly after I published it, and I noticed the same thing. Yeah, those enemies, especially the knife ones, they're very quick with the knives. So I thought, well, what would be good would be to introduce a kind of a pause. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to enter it, make a delay. Well, in order to do that, I need to show off a little bit about how the AI is programmed and how it works. I would imagine, since I'm posting these videos mostly in the Stencyl community, that most of you who are watching this are familiar with Stencyl. But for those of you that aren't, let me give kind of a very, very brief introduction of what you're looking at. So Stencyl is a game engine, development environment, and its key feature is that it has a visual scripting coding language similar to what you would find with MIT's Scratch. In fact, I don't know the details of the arrangement, but I'm pretty sure there is some agreement between the Stencyl company and MIT. I might be wrong on that. I don't know, and if I'm right, I don't know the details. But it's certainly inspired by Scratch. And well, every developer has their own preferences. I think Stencyl markets itself toward schools a lot. I know schools are one of their big customers. It's often seen as a good way to get introduced into programming. But one thing I like about Stencyl is that if you want to get more advanced, you can work with the language it's built off of. It's called HAX. And really that opens up a lot of doors that you really can't open with just the blocks alone. So my preference is for anything lower level, like math routines, graphics routines, data management routines. I prefer to write my own code, using HAX. But for high level routines, like moving characters around, the user interface, in some parts of AI, I like the blocks, and the blocks have a very nice, well, two nice advantages for me. One, I am a pretty visual person, and I teach programming as part of my job. And one thing I always teach my students is programming is mainly about problem solving. not necessarily about, of course, you need to know the code, you need to know the language, but it's more involved than just memorizing syntax. You really need to understand how to analyze a problem and solve it. So for me, being somewhat more of a visual person, seeing the blocks like you're seeing here just helps me visualize what the code does. And of course, when you create blocks, you don't have to memorize function names, which if you've done a lot of programming before, you work on a huge project, eventually you get to the point where you're just not going to remember all the function names that you've created and you have to look them up. That gets a little bit tedious. But of course, actually moving the blocks around, that can get tedious too. So when scripts get long enough, I have to abandon blocks and move back to typed code. For long enough scripts, the advantage of blocks just kind of gets eaten away by the cumbersome nature of them. Whereas, if they're small routines, being able to type doesn't give me enough speed. It's not enough of an advantage over, not having to look up all the names of functions I created. So I'll give you a little bit of a tour of what you saw in the last video. So these are my NPCs, and some of them you don't see, like these guys, Guard 2, 3, 4, and Harris. These are old sprites from the Stencyl Jam game. In fact, I don't know if you can see the title bar and window. This is called Stencyl Jam 18.2. So this is built right on top of that Stencyl Jam entry from a couple years ago. I've been cleaning it up ever since. But these guys, Axe Guard, Guard 1, Knife Guard, these are the guys you saw in the game. And yeah, they don't have much of a delay when they see you. As soon as they see the player character, whoop, right out, get their weapons right out and start firing. So we're going to introduce a delay. Let me show you a little bit about how these guys work. So I got Axe Guard 1 loaded here. You can see I got a lot of behaviors. By the way, some of these that have the nicer icons, I did make these for a like a little presentation I did for the library in my town, and you can download these behaviors. If you go to the Stencyl forum, I have these posted a couple times actually, because every time there's a Stencyl Jam I usually post these so that people can use them for their own games. They're just simple kit behaviors. My intent with these was to make them as simple as possible, just kind of have like a base to build off of, which is how I've used them here. But the ones in particular, so let me walk through the key ones to know. So first of all, I have some simple behaviors that give the enemy just the ability to walk around. In fact, here it is, walk back and forth. That makes them walk around a little bit. Leaves corpse. In this case, a corpse is an explosion, but when they die, that's a new actor is created in their place. Animations. This is a terrible, terrible script. Animations listeners. I mean, look at this. This is a monster. I really should transfer this to typed hex code because it's getting too unwieldy to work with. I don't have a reason right now to actually do that. I haven't lost enough patience with it. But yeah, that handles all the animations. And animations, that's hard to handle. Yeah, people that are new to Stencyl, let me give you some advice. Handling animations gets exponentially more difficult with the number of animations. And I mean, if you look at my player character, Marika, she had, this is the player character. So she has a bunch of these, and trying to manage, I think it's like almost 50. Trying to manage those, it's challenging. I'll say it that way. It's challenging. So anyway, back to the guard. So these ones with the cyan icons, these are the AI behaviors, and the way I've set this up is to try to mimic a little bit of what the human body does. A human body has a brain, and then you have eyes, ears, nerves, etc. that communicate with the brain, and then the brain takes that input and makes decisions based on it. And you look through my list here, I have a brain. In fact, I had an old brain that I took out, gave him a new brain, so a little bit of Frankenstein's monster. And then I have eyes and ears, not in the order I clicked them in. Eyes and ears. And remember in the last video I made a comment where the guard couldn't really see the player once they got too far away, and that's actually in the eyes. I don't have a the distance the guards can see. Unfortunately, I made a programming error. I hard-coded that, which is a no-no. I'll fix that later. But the ears, the guards can actually hear the player too, actually. If you get close enough, like you start walking close enough, they'll hear, and they can use that input to know to turn around, face the player, which I like that. Because later on in the game, you can get a skill called Sneak, and that will actually disable the ears, or at least it will reduce the distance that the enemies can hear you coming up from, and you can sneak up on them. Maybe this is a little over-engineered, because there's a probability factor here. You're guaranteed to not be heard if you're at least this many units away, but you might be heard if you're between, in this case, 400 and 800 units, and then if you're closer to 400 units, you're guaranteed to be heard. So there's a little bit of a probability there, I think. It's been a while since I've looked at this, to be honest. And, you know, look at all these scripts here, and there's more behind the scenes you're not seeing. Just to be honest, I don't remember everything. That's tip number 2. If you're working on a large project, document, 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 document. And I got my documentation. So yeah, it's just document everything. Comments, notes to yourself. I don't have my camera on. I have a little collection of notebooks where I can flip through things and look up things I did. So yeah, documentation is your friend on large projects and even small projects too. Because you're not going to remember. You know, things you did a couple months ago, you're not going to remember everything you need to know. Okay, well, let me show you how the brain works. So this is the part we need to tweak a little bit to get those guards to basically behave differently. So the core of the brain behavior is to think. That's why I called my updating routine think. Now, the way this works, you see that the think routine here is very, very short. There is a cooldown timer. This doesn't do exactly what the name says it does. Here, PL cooldown. I don't remember exactly what that did. I want to say, and I might need to move this, this is a wait state that's entered when the NPC hears the player. When they hear the player, they stop for a moment, and if I'm correct, this is in the wrong spot, because what this is actually going to do is it's going to paralyze the NPC. I mean, this is its core thinking routine. You know, if I have a wait state here, it's just going to freeze up completely. Maybe I should call that scare state or something, or being in shock, or clunked on the head too hard. Yeah, that's going to freeze them. Proper way to do this. Trigger event state. So state is a variable, and if you didn't know this, particularly if you're a new Stencyl developer, you can actually use, Stencyl calls them attributes, but in traditional programming they're called variables. You can have functions be variables. So in this case, the event that's triggered is going to depend on whatever is stored in the state attribute. And that's how I get the NPC to switch modes as they're thinking. So I did add a couple things right before I started recording this, but initially I had 2 modes, normal and alerted. Normal is the one that the NPC starts at the beginning. And here's where the eyes work. So I have a function here. Oh, sight radius. Oh, that's where it is. Okay. It is configurable. It's just not configurable in the eyes behavior. It's configurable here. Yeah. If I didn't say this, I think it's clear now. I don't have a design document for the code. I'm basically programming by reacting to problems that come along. And you have to do that to some extent, but maybe if I had thought to sit down and design things a little bit more intently, I could make this a little cleaner. But that's what refactoring's for. You can always refactor and you can always just edit. So I might change that later. But yeah, there's the eyes, and I think that's defaulted, yeah, to 256. So that's not even the length of a room. The rooms are usually the size of a screen, and the screen is 432 pixels wide. So yeah, 256 is just a little bit more than half a screen away. I guess these guys need glasses. Anyway, so if the NPC sees the player, then it goes into the alerted state. And here we're going to trigger the alerted state. Now, this wasn't here before, that cooldown timer. Originally, it would go to the alerted state. In fact, let me put this back here, and I'll recompile this, and we'll run this again, and we'll see how this behaves normally. Give this a moment. By the way, while this is compiling here, let me mention, if it's not obvious, I don't have these videos scripted. I actually prefer impromptu. Those of you that know me in the Stencyl community know that I'm a mathematician. I teach at a university in eastern North Carolina. I teach math primarily, but I do teach programming. I teach Python. Past couple of years I've taught Python, and of course, mathematics programming, I teach that too. And I really prefer impromptu. And part of that, even when I'm teaching something like Python, I like to do some live programming in class. And I know problems are going to occur. Like I know I'm going to have bugs in my programs. But I want my students to see how to think about problem solving. Because if you're going to work in programming, things are going to go wrong. And talking about how to properly deal with bugs and errors and bad things, I think at least for real world preparation is just as important as learning what to do correctly. Learning theory and concepts and the language. It's also good to learn how to debug, how to react to things that go wrong. So yeah, I'm a very impromptu person. What I should plan though is which one of these levels to play. Which we'll go with this one. So yeah, and this is the high security compound. We're coming back here again, taking another stab at it. Get the knife, and let's see if I can run through here and get to the interesting part. You know what? I probably shouldn't have killed him. I could have shown off. Let's take it from here. Alright, that guy up above, he's a knife guy. Yeah, see, as soon as he saw you, bam, immediately starts throwing knives. We're going to fix that. So, like I said, this is impromptu. I don't know what to expect here. I'm going to change the state to a new state. I was just started to work on before I thought, hey, I might as well record this. So state waiting. And then, well, let me show you what state waiting does. So state waiting basically right now just acts like a pause. The only thing it does is tick down the cooldown timer, and as soon as that cooldown timer hits 0, it moves to the alerted state. Now, one thing, the way I've set this up is, let's say while the NPC is waiting, the player comes up and punches him or does something like that. Well, that's sensory input, and all of these events that you see here, these are triggered by either different senses or when something happens. So like, let's say the NPC is walking back and forth and it hits a wall. Well, in the event that detects the collision, these events are triggered, and this instructs the NPC to turn around, which is what you're seeing here. But exactly what happens also depends on the state. So right now, not much different happens, but in the alerted state, the NPC is programmed to more frequently scan the area to see if the player's around, because they're in heightened alert. Just think, if there's danger, you're going to be looking around more, right? And you'd be a little more alert. So that's why I programmed here. And in the normal state, they're just a lot more relaxed. They're not thinking to check their surroundings as much. This is just a job for them. They got hired by the Vallas people to patrol this little thing. They get paid a little bit of money. They're not too Sentry guy, this wasn't what he wanted to do. He wanted to be a painter or something. He just his parents talked him into this for some reason, and now he's a knife guy. Anyway, let me say, put the cooldown timer on here, and I set the wait cooldown. Right now you can see it's a hidden variable. I will make this configurable later. Oh, wait cooldown. 100, so this is ticks. 100 ticks is 1 second. We'll launch this, and I'm going to get a sip of coffee while we're waiting. When I really like coffee. I have a little collection of coffee mugs, and one of these days, I'll get the camera on one of these days. I can show you my mugs here. My wife bought one. You can't see it. It has a cat giving a thumbs up, and it says, Halloween is meowgical. Yeah, we have cats. So I was a dog person growing up, and then I met my wife, and she was a cat person. And I like cats too, so now I'm a cat person. Okay, so here we go. We're going to discover together what happens after. Take him out. Okay, there's the knife guy. So remember, that guy was the one that as soon as he... Get away from that sound. I take that out from here. Give me a moment. I cannot talk and listen to that boom, 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 boom. Oh, that's an improvement. Okay, as I was saying, that's the guy that as soon as he sees, now remember, he can see within 256 pixels, which is about a little bit more than half the screen away. So as soon as we jump onto that ledge, he'll see you. Or he won't see you, he'll see the player character. Let me see if I can jump over there. Well, there we go. There's the wait. Not quite what I wanted. Yeah, he's just kind of, I don't know what he's doing there, doing the macro. Well, this happened last time. When I tried to talk and play this game at the same time, I'm probably not going to be the kind of person that could make a Let's Play. I like to watch Let's Plays just to have some background noise while I'm working, but yeah, I don't think you're getting one from me. Unless you want to see flailing around a lot. Let's try that again. Oh, I didn't need to use that many knives. Okay. So there's the guy again. We'll illustrate one more time. So yeah, he's kind of doing the Macarena. Well, okay, well, that's an easy problem to fix. I think what I just need to do is program him to stop. Is that he's not stopping. Okay. Well, there we go. That should say 11. Uh-oh. Do I have another bug? Yeah, that should be... I don't know why that's not going up. That's weird. That just broke all of a sudden. Because it got up to 10. Well, that's annoying. I must have done something to break it. Well, I guess one thing at a time. Let me show you debugging. So, I don't think you want to watch me sit and fix everything, because, what's the fun in that? But I'll show you how debugging works. I'll run this again. Now, my brother, when we were in junior high and elementary school, he would sometimes watch me program, because we want to make games together. He'd watch me program. I always wondered, is that really fun to watch someone program? But, his son, actually... when I went to visit them for over Thanksgiving last year, I was doing a little programming. He'd come up and watch. So, yeah, maybe it is. I don't know. I've heard of people doing live development with Twitch and things like that, particularly doing Ludum Dare. So, maybe. I'm not going to try that, but here we go. Let me show you something. So now that my mouse pointer is visible, I was wrong. There's two things you can do with the mouse in this game. First one, I did this, I showed it off, but without the mouse pointer, it probably doesn't make sense. Boop. Okay. There's an Easter egg in SimEarth, if you're familiar with that game, where you could poke the eyes of the earth. That's where I got the motivation to do that. Boop. Yeah, she doesn't like her eyes poked. The other thing you do with the mouse, you see in the bottom right corner here, there's a little pie symbol. If you've ever seen The Net with that girl from the bus, that is a reference to that movie. And in the movie, I'm not going to show a movie clip on this because I don't want to get a copyright strike. But click that and hit Control-Shift. You go into debug mode. And in debug mode, you can warp to levels, which I'm not going to do. But you can also turn on debugs. I think it's Control-B. Yeah, you might have seen it in the prompt. See in the prompt there, debug set brains. So you can debug brains. I don't think there's anything else I need to debug right now. So we'll go with that. So yeah, debugging. Let me show you real quick. First of all, I have all these debug things here. I have a debug routines. So a good quarter, I'd say, of my code is just supporting debugging. And that's something in my isometric engine. Error reporting and debugging aids was a pretty significant part of the code. And that's, I guess another tip for those of you that are, just getting started with Stencyl and trying to tackle a big project. The more you can do to give yourself insight into the different values of the variables and attributes, the better. Because that's what debugging is really about, is understanding what it is you're seeing. And sometimes, just the visual cues isn't enough. Like we saw the guy walking, but I don't know what he's thinking. I just know that he's walking. We want to know what he's thinking. So we're going to do that. So continue. Let me pick this level again. Okay, so we got debug mode on. I'm going to take out this stupid thing. Ah, there we go. Normal TW. Well, I missed it. See, I'm trying to talk and do this at the same time. Okay, so he's alerted. If I step away from him, let me see if I can scout. Yeah, so see, I'm outside of the 256 pixel range. I'll pause it for a moment. Since I'm outside the 256 pixel range, he can't see me anymore. So once he's been alerted, but he no longer sees the player character anymore, he goes back to normal mode. And when I get back, yeah, oh wow, that was weird. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that, but very briefly it said state, like a question. Let me check that again. Yeah, huh. So he's normal, and then it does that, and then he's, well, that's interesting, he can't see me. I didn't know that. He can't see. He couldn't see me when I was done. Huh. I totally forgot about that functionality. But yeah, when you're ducking, it's harder for them to see. Okay, let me. That is really bugging me. That 10 there, that should be going. Why is that not going up? That's just. It was working. I did not touch the save code. Well, anyway. So yeah, he was. Oh, okay. The bug is in my debugging routine. Yeah, we'll fix that. So I need a new. There we go. It was a bug, not altered, alerted. Okay, but yeah, the ducking thing. I totally forgot I did that. So let me show you how the eyes work. So in this normal thing, you see he's looking for the player. I thought that player routine, that's in the eyes code. I thought that it was just a simple distance check, but no, it's more complicated. There's a hiding flag here. Can't see the player if she's dead. There's the pixel. Well, I didn't mean to take the D out. Yeah, if the player's ducking, it divides the distance in half. I totally forgot about that. Well, see, that's why it's good to look at your code every now and then. Like I said, with big projects, you just sometimes forget things. I'm going to have some fun playing with this later, though. Because, yeah, if you're ducking, I could totally set it up so that you can duck behind objects or things and sneak around. That opens up some interesting opportunities. Okay, well, I'm starting to daydream now. And maybe this video is going on a little long, so I need to start wrapping things up. So, what have we learned today? Take good notes, tip number 1. Tip number 2, take more good notes. Tip number 3, debug tools. But actually, since my main intent was to show you how the AI code works, then I've done that. But apparently there's more to this than even I remember. So, we got part of the problem solved. We got the wait state put in. I guess maybe just add one more thing here to get the guy to stop walking. I need to remember how to do that. But I think it's just a matter of, yeah, just doing the stopped walking. Here we go, stop walking. We'll make him stop walking. Yeah, see, I have debug here for walking. Debugging's been a mess. There's a lot of debugging things, but we'll do it's stop walking. This is why I like events. You can just look up events and stick them in here, and you're good to go. All right, let's see if he at least doesn't dance in place anymore. That's coming. You know, one thing I haven't not done is turned on, was it CPIAA? Just the regular old programming. I probably should try that because that would save some time here. I also need to renew my license. I think my studio subscription is about to expire. Because usually, I used to renew it in April, and then I got an honorable mention for the Temple of Idazra game, and it got extended to October. And since then, I've kept forgetting to renew, because I'm still used, even though it's been years, I'm still used to doing that in April. Alright, so let's test these guys here. Do they start dancing in place? Hey, there we go. Well, that is a high note to end in this video on. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.